Hey everybody. So because of the fact that COVID-19 has shut down campus, the remainder of our in-person workshops have been canceled. So this is the first of our digital workshops. It's a first for Night Hacks, and obviously, we've been trying to figure out a lot of different things due to this COVID-19 virus, but I hope that everyone's staying safe and healthy, and that we're still able to provide workshops for everyone so that they can learn about some exciting technologies and stuff and how to do some new stuff while they're stuck inside their house. So, just to get started, this workshop's going to be on how to build and deploy a MERN application. Coming up next week, we're going to have someone give a workshop from AI at UCF on how to build your own Markov chain in Python. And then we're going to have someone the following week give a workshop on GIS in Python as well. So really excited for those. To get started with this workshop, my name is Dylan. I'm the president of Night Hacks. I'll be the person running the workshop today, and just walking you through the process. So what is a MERN application? MERN is an abbreviation. It stands for MongoDB, Express.js, React, and Node.js. You don't really need to worry necessarily about what all those different things are. We'll go more in depth into each of them as we go through the process, but for now, just know that they're parts of a stack, which is the different programming languages and softwares and stuff that you use when you build a project. So that's our tech stack. So these are the different parts of this tech stack that we're using. Some key terminology: the front end of an application, that's the part that the user sees and plays with. The backend is the part that actually is making the app work and handles a lot of the different logic. And then the database is where all the information of the application is stored. So just to get set up really quickly, some stuff you'll need is Node.js and NPM. So Node.js is going to be the programming languages that we use, and NPM will be the package manager for Node.js. So that's also going to be important. And then we're also going to need the gcloud command line tool, because that's how we're going to do all of our deployment stuff with Google Cloud Platform. So just going here, this link is in the description. It's nodejs.org/en/download. So you can come here. This will handle downloading Node.js, and it'll also download NPM for you. So if you just go through this download here, then you should be all set with Node.js. And then here is and this link is also going to be in the description, the Google Cloud, the SDK download. So this will give you steps depending on your operating system and stuff on how to download the SDK so that you're going to be able to use it when we do end up deploying the application. So yeah, those are going to be the two things that you need to download to get started out. Okay, so now we're going to set up our database. For this tutorial, we'll be using MongoDB Atlas. MongoDB Atlas is a cloud-hosted database, so we don't have to install anything on our own local machine to do it. It lives in the cloud, that's where it runs, and it's a NoSQL database. Basically, all that means is that it's going to store information a little bit differently than a relational database. This workshop is not really specifically designed to teach you a lot about databases, so I'm not going to go too much into that kind of stuff, but definitely worth learning more about if you're interested in doing a lot with your database and doing more with a website. So yeah, just to get started, this link is in the description. It's mongodb.com/cloud/atlas. So I have a Cloud Atlas account, but I haven't created anything on this Gmail account. So I'll click Start Free. I'll give it my work email. So Dylan@nighthacks.org. And then I'll give it my first name and my last name. So yeah, then you just click Get Started for free. This doesn't really have to be your work email. It can be any email. I don't think it does any kind of check for that. So yeah, now it says you can use your account to deploy whatever. We want to create these shared clusters because they're free. And then for cloud provider, you want to put Google Cloud Platform because that's what we're going to eventually be deploying to. Let's just use Iowa. Cluster tier, that's fine because we want to use the free tier. And then we don't need any kind of additional settings. We could give our cluster a name if we want to. Let's just give it MERN cluster. see how that works. And then create the cluster, and we'll wait for that to work. And yeah, so now it's creating our cluster. This is important because this is the database that we're going to be connecting our application to when we're building it. So it's important that we were able to get that set up, and then when this finishes with everything that it needs to do, we'll be able to use it. It's currently provisioning it, but we actually don't need to do anything with this right now. We won't need to touch anything with this until we come back and we actually connect it to our application. So for now, it was just important to create an account and get the cluster set up. So then the next thing we'll have to do is create a Google Cloud account. So Google Cloud is nice because it will actually allow you to get $300 in free credits when you create a new account. So again, I don't have any kind of Google Cloud account on this email that I'm in right now, so I'll click Get Started for free, and it'll bring me through the process of creating a new one. So I'll just go here, continue, and as you can see, you do need to put in credit or debit card information. And the reasoning behind this is that you're gonna have to use that information. It says it right here. You'll use the information just to prove you're not a robot, but you won't be charged unless you upgrade to a paid plan, and you get $300 in free credits when you create an account. So it's definitely worth it to put the information in here. It won't charge your card unless you go over these free credits. So it is a free trial, so definitely don't be too worried about that, but keep an eye on it just to make sure that anything weird doesn't happen. I had something weird happen and I had to contact their support, but 99% of the time there's no problem with it, and it won't auto charge you until your free trial ends, so you should be fine there. So once you go through that, then you'll be able to go to the console, and we won't need to do anything with that either until we get to the deployment step. I just wanted to make sure that you could go through and create an account early. That way it'll help when we get everything set up. So, and that was the process of setting up Google Cloud. Okay, so now we're going to go through the process of creating the React application. So just to talk a little bit about React, React is a front-end framework that Facebook created. It's a really good one, helps a lot with development. I did a workshop on React for the club earlier. There's a lot that you could say about React, so if you want to check that out, that's also on the YouTube channel. But yeah, specifically, it's just a front-end framework that we're going to be using, and that's what's going to be serving up that part of the application that people can see. So I'll go through briefly how to create a React application. Just so everyone knows, when you're creating this React application, you're going to be packaging it using the build command and just packaging into this nice thing that is going to be easier to serve on GCP. But just know that because of that, this same process, you could do the same thing for an Angular app or a Vue app. This workshop will definitely be helpful for both of those because it's going to be pretty much the same process. You'll just do something different when you set up your front end. But besides that, it'll be the pretty similar process of setting up the stack itself because everything else is pretty much the same except for this front end. And either way, you're also going to be packaging it into this later wait folder. So just to get started with that, we'll start actually writing some code. So I'm using VS Code here. You can use whatever code editor that you want, but my favorite is VS Code, so I'm using that. So I've created a folder here. It's called MERN Workshop. You can call it whatever you want. Just make sure it's in a place that you know and that you can access. So I created this folder, and right now all that's inside of it is this README, but we're going to go to this folder from our command line. So just in case anyone has never done this before, I'll go back out to okay, so this is where it would open to if you just opened up your command line for the first time. And if you don't know how to do that on Windows, you go command prompt. If you search for that, then you'll be able to find it. And if you can't on, what's it called? On Mac, it's called terminal. So that's how you would reach here. This is just, we're interacting with the computer from the command line. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to that folder that we just created. So I created it on my desktop. So this cd command means change directory. So I'm going to change my directory into my desktop because that's where the folder I created for the application is. So I'll go cd into my desktop, and then I will cd into kh-mern-workshop, because that's what I called the folder. So we're in the folder right now, and now what I want to do is I want to create the front-end application. So this front-end application, we're just gonna call it, for now, we'll just actually call it we'll call it front end. So the reason we're calling it that is because this outer application is actually what is gonna be the application itself. You know what I mean? This is gonna be the outermost folder that's gonna store all of our different stuff in it. This folder is just gonna hold all the front end stuff. So it's just gonna hold the React application. So we're just gonna call the application front end, and we'll just go about it like that. So the command to create a React app is npx create-react-app, and then the name of the app that you want to make. So I want to call mine front end. So I'll do npx create-react-app front end, and then I'll click enter, and it'll start doing that for me. This is the really cool thing about React. If you've never worked with it before, it'll set up all your file structure, all your everything, just basically all for you. We don't have to do any work. So it just created a new React app in this user's Dylan Skelly desktop in this front end folder. And now it's installing all the packages that I'll need for React. Another thing to mention too is that npx command, it would have installed that when you installed npm. So if you installed npm properly, that npx command should just work, because it's also a part of that npm package manager. So yeah, right now it's working on installing all of the packages that I'll need. So installing React, React DOM, React scripts. Just depending on what your internet connection is and how fast things are working, this could take different amounts of time. But yeah, as you can see, it's taking a little bit of time for me. It could take a little longer for you, a little less time, but yeah, as long as you're seeing this, everything's working properly and it's setting up your project right. So that's great. We'll just give this a second to finish, and it seems to be almost done. And almost there. And it is, tricked me. It's close. Okay, awesome. So yeah, it finished installing and creating my app, and it basically even gives me the commands to do to make my app work. So it gives me an npm start command, an npm run build, npm test, run eject. So yeah, and it even tells me what to do to make the app work. So it says cd into front end. So change your directory into front end, and then run npm start. So cd into front end, and then do npm start. And what this should do is it should start up my development server, and it will open up on localhost 3000. So boom, there it is. Localhost 3000 is it's basically just running on your machine. So this is where it's running on your machine. If you go to this address, then you'll be able to see your app, and as long as you see this, you set it up properly. So we have our React application, it's created, it works, and if we come back here, we'll see now if we open up front end that there is all this stuff generated for us. So we have this big public folder, this source folder that has all of our stuff in it. This git ignore and all this, our package JSON and all this. I'm not really going to go too deep into what exactly all these different things that it created for us are, because we won't really need to do that. I'll probably touch on it later when we're connecting this to the backend and doing some stuff like that. But for now, I'm not going to go too much into it because it kind of is out of the scope of this workshop. Going too deep into React. I'm trying to keep it more targeted towards just the deployment of the application. So yeah, but as long as you see this screen, you know that you completed the process correctly and you have a front-end React application created, and the process would be very similar for a Vue or an Angular application. And now what we have to do is we actually have to run one command because the um, the app, when we load it up and we deploy it somewhere, it isn't going to load up this folder. It's actually going to load up another folder that we create that will have a minified version of all of this and basically just like a production ready version. So to do that, you're going to come back here, and it even gives us the command here. It says to create a production build, use npm run build. So we're going to do that. We're going to run npm run build, and you're going to get this again. This might actually take a little while as well. It just depends. Since it hasn't created the folder ever before, it might take a little while. Actually, it took not as long as I thought it would, but yeah, now it says the build is ready to be deployed and you can serve it, whatever. But yeah, so the important thing is the build folder is ready to be deployed. So if we come back here, now we'll see we have this new build folder, and it has all of this information in it, and this is good. This means that our React app is successfully created and we're ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so for the next step, we're going to create an Express application. This is going to be what hosts our backend as well as our front end. So it's going to kind of host the entire app. Express is a very minimalistic web framework. It kind of prides itself on that, as React is a lot more heavy duty, a lot more, bigger, but Express is, very minimalistic, and that's kind of its thing. Going over HTTP a little bit, because we're going to be dealing with some HTTP going forward. Just to understand what HTTP requests are, if you guys have never worked with them. So an HTTP request is pretty much like something like this application telling something else like, hey, I want you to do something. So you can do HTTP GET requests, which would be like you're trying to get resources out of like the database or something, or POST request. Those are the two that we're going to worry about for now. But the POST request would be like I'm trying to put something into something, you know what I mean? So like let's just, for example, use a database. So a GET request to a database would be like, hey, I'm trying to get information out of the database. And the POST request would be more along the lines of, I'm trying to put something into the database. So that might not really make sense now, but we're going to start writing some code, and hopefully when we start writing it, it'll start making a little bit more sense why I kind of went over that briefly. But okay, so first we are going to cd ... So what this does actually is it takes us out of this front end folder and it takes us one directory back. So when we do that, we're back in our MERN workshop directory, and then I'm going to clear the screen. So we need to install some packages, right? So the first package we're going to need to install is Express itself. So the way you install packages using Node is you just type in npm, but well, actually first, because npm, and this kind of goes a little bit more into how npm works, but as you can see in this front end folder, we have this package JSON, and you need this package JSON to add packages in Node. So to create one, we're going to do npm init. And this is just going to walk us through. So what do you want to call it? You can just press enter for all of these. We don't need a description. Sure. Sure. Fine. Looks good. And yep, that looks good. Okay, so now I'll clear the screen, and if we come back here, we'll see that just created this, which is a package JSON. We won't worry about that for now. We'll probably come back to it, and I'll kind of go over some stuff. But yeah, so it created this package JSON, and now we need to install the packages we need. So let's go npm install express. And it'll do the same thing it did before when we created the React app, and it has installed Express for us. And as you can see, Express is here now. So, yep, it installed it properly. And now we have this node modules folder. Don't really worry about this or this. We're not going to really go into too much, and you really shouldn't have to mess with anything in either of these. It just has to do with how npm works and how it, manages all the packages and stuff that you're using in a project. So for now, we won't worry about those too much, and then we will go ahead and create a new file. So we're going to call this file, it made it in the node modules folder. Okay, so let's try to create a new file in this folder, and we'll call this file index.js. And this is where we'll create our Express applications. That's where we'll write the code for it. So first, we're going to need to get that Express package we just used. So let's go const express equals require express. Okay, so this will give us express, and then this is just kind of boilerplate for any time you use express. This is just how you create the express app. So there, now we have this app. And now what we'll do is we will say app.listen on either process.m.port or on port 8080. And I'll go over what this is doing in a second, but we'll say console.log express app is running on port 8080. Okay, so we have this thing, probably makes no sense what it does right now, but pretty much what you can try to understand from this is that this app is our Express app, and the same way that when we went to localhost 3000 here, the same way as when we went here and we got this screen, when you come back here, this is saying listen on 8080. So instead of 3000, we're going to listen on port 8080. And when it's doing that, it's going to return console.log express app is running on port 8080. This is some Node.js stuff. You can make functions like this in Node.js with the arrow. Node.js is, kind of its own topic. You could probably spend a lot of time trying to understand exactly how, to write Node.js and everything, and you could probably spend some more time trying to do that on yourself, but you don't need to necessarily have, I think, a really amazing grasp of it to do a lot of basic, deploying MERN application type stuff. So I won't go too much into it, but just know that this is some Node.js stuff here. This process.m.port basically would be like if you deployed this to GCP, it would grab the port rather than it being 8080, because it could be anything on the machine that GCP is running your application on. So we're grabbing the port from there, and that will help us when we actually deploy this app. So now to run this, all we would actually have to do is go to the command line. We would go node index.js, and it's running on port 8080. And we can tell that because we'll come back here and we'll go 8080, and we'll say it cannot get slash. But we know that it's running because it gave us this. Like if we went to 8081, we would just get like a site can't be reached. So we know something's running here. So we have our Express app running on port 8080. And yeah, that is a good start. And see how straightforward, like this was, 6 lines of code, and we have this server running. So next we're gonna implement some stuff to serve up our front end from this application, and we'll do that in a second. Okay, so I've zoomed in a little bit here, so it's a little bit easier to see what we've done so far. But yeah, so we have this app.listen, process.m.port or 8080. So that's the Express application's running on port 8080 right now, but it doesn't really do anything currently. As you can see, if I were to do node index.js right now and go back to localhost 8080, it still gives us that cannot get slash. So that is a problem. And what we wanted to actually do is when we try to, so this is a GET request, right? The user's trying to get something. They're trying to get whatever's at slash. And right now, it isn't giving us back anything. So this kind of goes into that HTTP request stuff I was talking about before. You don't need to be a master of HTTP requests at all just to get an application up and running, but definitely worth looking a little bit more into. So what you can do in order to get something running there is go to the Express documentation. So I'll add a link to this in the description. And what we really want to do is we want to serve up these static files from this folder. And luckily, Express has a nice method to do that, to serve static files. So if we Control F here and we go express.static, it'll bring us here, and we'll say this is a built-in middleware function in Express, and it serves static files. So that's exactly what we want to do. So we'll go down a little bit more, and we'll see how they're using it here. and you can see that they do app.use express.static. So use this, static middleware function that serves our static files, and then we need to give it the directory that we want it to serve it from. And we can also give it options, but we don't really need any options right now. So we'll just give it the directory we want to serve it from, and that directory for us is going to be our directory here plus front end plus build, because this is our React application here that we want to serve. So if we come back here and we just copy and paste this, and then we come back here and we know that we want to do app.use express.static, and this is not the path that we want to use. So we know that we want to use front end slash build, and we want to use our current directory plus front end dash build. So there is a really nice npm package, just like Express will install it that same way, that lets us really easily join together path names. So I'm going to install that right now. So we'll do npm install path. And yeah, so now it just installed path, and now we can require that in the same way. If we go to our package.json, we'll see path is now there. And then we come back here and we'll say const, oh, that's not what I was trying to do, const path equals require path, and now we can do a method from path called path.join, and we'll say dir name, which is our current directory that we're in, and then it'll join this dir name to front end slash build, and then we'll want to add one more to close that out. The reason we'll use dir name is because when we deploy this to Google Cloud Platform, it's going to be running on their machine, and we don't know what directory it'll be in, so just using dir name helps with that. And now if we run our application again, you'll see that it is currently serving this up. So that's good, but it isn't entirely what we want, because let's say that they try to go to something weird like this. It'll still give us can't get this. So this comes back into like it's using the correct folder, but it isn't giving back the correct, like if they want to go here, we still want to give them our website, and maybe we want to route this differently through our site, and that goes a little bit more into React. You can use something called React Router to route some of these a little bit easier in React, but we're not going to be using that in this. We just want to always give it back our React site if you go to some random something like that. So the way that we'll do that is we'll look on the Express documentation, and we'll find how to do GET requests using Express. So we'll keep searching on the page for it, and we find here. Okay, so this is the app object denotes the Express application, and you created it up here, so you created it this way. And then to do a GET request is pretty straightforward. You just do app.get. So what we want to do is, this is just slash, but what you can really do is you can do app.get slash and then use some regex here. So if you aren't familiar with regex, it's a way to like match strings. So we'll just copy and paste this for now. Come back over here and we'll do app.get slash, and that will serve let's just say for now, let's do like app.get slash like API, which is what we're going to be doing later when we start working a little bit more with our database. And I'll talk a little bit more about what an API is, but yeah, and then this is the callback function, the same way this was a callback function down here. So first it'll try to do app.get, and then it'll run this callback function, and it'll send the string hello world. So to check to make sure that that works, we actually need to kill our server and run it again, because the reason we have to do this is that this isn't listening for changes in our directory. So every time we make a change, we have to kill the server and run it again. So yeah, we're gonna save this file, run node index.js, and now it should be running the server again. And we come back here and do this. Obviously not there though. We do this, and it'll give us back hello world. So we successfully created a GET request, but we want to, instead of just doing slash API, we want to make it so if you do slash anything and we didn't explicitly tell it to do something, we wanted to give it back our React application. So to do that, we'll actually just do slash this, and then we'll do res.send path.join, and we'll say their name again, and we will say frontend slash build slash index.html. So this gets a little bit more into like how React applications work that we don't really want to talk about. But basically your whole React application is connecting itself to this index.html. So you can just send that file and it will give you all of your React application. So we're going to send it the React application. And this slash star, this is the regex I was talking about. So this is matching strings after slash. So if the user says slash anything right now, it'll give it back the React application. And this, I just noticed this callback function is, it might be confusing. In Node.js, you can write functions like this. So this is called an arrow operator. You can write functions with arrow operators, or you can write them the way most people have probably seen them, where you do function request and this rec and res here. This is the request from the user, and this is the resolution. So we aren't using the request here because we don't. The user isn't sending us any useful information in the request. We're just using the resolution to send them back something that they want. So we will come back here, kill the server, node index.js, and hopefully it will send us back what we want. So we'll go there. And so this is a mistake, but does anyone want to guess like why this sent us back this? Because the reason is that what we really just did here is we said res.send path.join this. So all it's going to do is it's going to send us back this string of path.join. But we want it to actually send us back a file. And there's actually a method in Express to send files. So if we do send file, we'll see that this optional argument passes through to the underlying whatever res.send file. Okay, this method uses res.send file. So here it is. So res.send file basically transfers the file at the given path. So it'll send us back the file that's at the path that we give it. So when we did res.send, it was just sending the string that we created here of whatever path we're in. But what we really want to do is res.send file path.join. And then if we kill the server and restart it, then come back to here and we go here, it should give us back our application no matter where we are. And this will only give us back our application by default if we haven't specified something else that we want to get from there. So let's say that if we try to get slash API, like if we were to go here and do app.get slash API, we'll do, and I'll write this one as an arrow operator, and I'll also change this one to use an arrow operator. And we'll say res.send owl. And it'll send owl because I just hit the API. It's kind of a bad joke, but yeah. So we'll do that. And we'll come back here. And it should still give us that, but if we go to slash API, it'll give us owl now. So that's important because it basically means that we can hit routes off of here and it'll give us back stuff that we need. And that's important because when we're interacting with our database, the way we're actually going to do it is we're going to create routes that interact with our database and give us back information that we need, and we're going to hit those routes. And that's when we'll get more into like post requests and get requests and stuff. I might not touch on post requests today. I might just keep the get request to keep it a little bit easier. But yeah, so that's basically what that does. But we have now successfully served up our React application from Express, which is great. I'll leave this in here just for the moment being. And then the next step, since we have our Express application running and serving up our front end, is going to be to connect the back end of the application to the database. So that's what we'll do next. Okay, so the next step is going to be us connecting our backend to our database, and we're going to do that by going back to this MongoDB cluster that we created before. It should be finished creating by now, and then you can go to connect. We'll add our current IP address, make the username admin, and then show the password, and save this. I clicked auto generate secure password. Save this. Go back to your code editor and just paste that in. See, we'll paste that in right there, and then come back here, create the user, and then choose a connection method. We're going to connect our application. So we will copy and paste this down here and put it right there. And then this password part we will replace with our password. So boom, and then we will now add a package that's going to help us work with connecting to MongoDB. It's an ODM, so it just helps us with modeling everything and makes MongoDB a lot more powerful. It's called Mongoose, and yeah, so it already gives us some code to use when initially connecting to a database. So we'll just copy and paste what they're providing us here. And then we'll come down here and we're going to have to install Mongoose. So we'll go npm install Mongoose. And now Mongoose should be installed. And we will get rid of this. We'll grab this. And then we'll put that there. And perfect. Okay. So now what we can do, if we go to the Mongoose documentation and look a little bit more at this, they have a whole section here, mongoose.prototype.connect, on what exactly this is doing. So those options are just, they're just telling me to pass them in there. So I'm just going to pass in those options as well. You can put in the URI you want to connect to, the options you want to use when you connect, and then you can also pass in a callback. So for this, I'll just pass in a callback and it'll give us our error if we try to connect and there's an error. So the callback will be here and we'll put error. Error. And then they also have a method that is mongoose.connection.on. So yeah, this will pretty much tell us and you can have multiple connections, but this will default to the first connection in your list. So we'll do mongoose.connection.on, and then you can do .on error, or you can also do .on open. Is another other one that you can do. So we will make one that says mongoose.connection.on. Another callback, and we'll do console.log successfully connected, and then we'll do mongoose.connection.on, and what was the .on error, and we'll just do a callback, and we'll say console.log there was an error. So that's great. And yeah, so that's good. And now we can test to see if this works, because when we run our Express server, it should try to connect to our database, and if it connects successfully, then we should be all good. So let's go node index.js, and we successfully connected. And it gave us null for the error because there wasn't an error when we connected. So that's good. And then we can kill the server that way and connect again. And it's good. So we've successfully connected our backend to our database. We aren't really doing anything with the database yet. So yeah, but before we do that, I do want to say that this is not how you should store this information. So you should never store this string like this in like plain text in this file, because like if we were source controlling this on something like GitHub, so if we were putting all of our code on GitHub, if you're unfamiliar with GitHub or Git, it's like kind of like Google Drive for code. It's, you can check in different code and stuff on there, and people can check out your code and like see what you did in different places. If we had this on there, people could connect to our database that we wouldn't want to. Um, so the way that we will make that not happen is by using a npm package called .env. So let's just look up .env documentation. There it is, .env. So pretty much what this does is um, it will create a .env file in the root folder of your product, and then it'll add environment-specific variables. So process.env, basically it'll let us access, you can see the same way that we did here, process.env.port. That would be like an environment variable that might exist on like the server that we want to run it on. So we can pretty much access variables like that, and that's how we should be storing this. So what we can do is take this, and instead of using .config, um, .env.config, if result.error, throw result.error, let's just do, well, yeah, let's just do .config because that's the base. So the way that this would look, right, is we would create a file, we would call it .env, and in here we would do mongo underscore db equals, we come back to our index.js, take out this really long string, like that. We'd go to .env, paste it in there, and then we come back to index.js, we would delete this, and we would say process.env.mongo underscore db. So that's how we would do that, and then we would do here, we would go to the top, and we would copy and paste in this, and then we could go back here, and we're going to need to npm install .-m, and it'll install that package for us, and then we can do node index.js, and it said it can't find .env because I required the wrong package, or I might have installed the wrong package actually. Yep, okay, so I installed the wrong package, so we'll go npm install .env, and then we will try to do clear the screen, we'll do node index.js, and it's successfully connected again. So this is good because pretty much what it is letting you do is grabbing it from that file, and then you can just not add this file on GitHub. And if someone wants to connect to your database, they'll have to ask you for all these .env variables. But yeah, that's the way to go about doing that. And now we have successfully connected the back end of our application to the front end, and we can still access our application. And we can, now that it's connected to the back end, we can see that there is an open connection, because there's one connection, and then we can go ahead and go from there. So now we're actually going to be able to do stuff to our database, and that will be the next step. So yeah, we made some changes to the Express application, and then the next step is going to be connect the front end to the back end. So what does that really mean? It's already serving up the front end, but I guess what I meant more by that is connecting the front end to the database. So we're going to go into this front end, and we're going to build out a couple of routes to do some stuff with the database. So yeah, very exciting stuff. We're going to do that next. Okay, so now we're going to go through connecting the front end and the back end. So to do this, it's going to make sense now why this slash API route, why we left it, because if we go here and we hit slash API, it's still giving us back out. But what we wanted to do actually is we wanted to make changes to our database. So just for the purposes of this workshop, I'll just use whatever is existing here. So this is mongoose.model, pretty much lets you make a model, and it's important because it lets you make sure the stuff you put in the database is all similar, you know what I mean? And you can even make some of these fields required, so like it would have to have a name, so you can't put a cat into the database that doesn't have a name. But yeah, we'll just copy and paste this code, and we'll go to here, we'll do const cat equals mongoose.model, and then we'll take this code and we'll say const what kitty equals new cat, And then when it says kitty.save, then console.log that is pretty much saving it into our database. So it's going to save a cat into our database. So let's just check to see if this works, right? So whenever we hit the slash API route, it does all of this stuff. So we'll do kitty equals new cat, and its name will be that. And then let's just do console log cat added to the database. Okay, nice. And this should be a post route because we're going to be putting something in the database. Um, so yeah, that it looks good. And now if we do here node index.js again, successfully connected to the database. And we go back here and we do this. Now it'll just give us our app. So why didn't it do what we put here? Why didn't it put this kitty into the database? And that's because this is a post route. So we have to send a post request here to put the kitty into the database. We can't do that from a GET request, which is what we just did here. We made a GET request to slash API. It would just give us our React application. So in order to do that, let's just go into React app. And I don't really want to go too much into React, so you don't really need to understand exactly what's happening here, but we're pretty much just going to add a button, and that button is going to make a request to slash API. Okay, so yeah, as you can see here, I'm in my app.js folder in the front end, the app.js file on the front end folder, and you'll notice that this is exactly what is on the React app currently. So that is good. And then if we go to, if we want to make requests to the database, what we'll have to do is we actually have to add in this library that you see here. This is called Axios. It's a library that lets you make requests, HTTP requests, promise-based HTTP client for your browser in Node.js. So yeah, you'll have to go npm install Axios. So you'll go to the terminal. So yeah, you'll go to the terminal and you will go and you first also make sure that because we were here, you'll have to go to your front end folder because we're installing these dependencies into our application. So go here and go npm install Axios. And I already have it installed, so this should go pretty quickly. Okay, yeah, so it installed it. So then if I go to my package.json in my front end folder, I should now see Axios. And then if you go back to app.js and you require an Axios, we can use it. So now we are going to create a function in here called handle click. And this is just where you can write a function in Node with an arrow operator. And we'll go to the Axios documentation. And we want to make a post request to our slash API route. So if we go to the post request documentation, we can just grab this, post that in there, change the route to be slash API, and let's just give it a body, and let's give the body a name, and I'll just use Dylan. So we're now sending a post request to slash API with the name Dylan, and then we'll do a function with the response, and we'll console.log what the response is. And then in order to fire this off, this is just some React stuff, so I'm probably not going to go too much into React, but basically we're just going to add in a button, and we'll say that this will fire off our handle click method when someone clicks it, and we'll say add a kitty to the database. awesome. And then we'll come back to here and we'll run our, well first we'll have to rebuild our application so that we can see it. So we'll do npm run build. And this is going to update that static file folder that's being served from the Express application. So it's creating an optimized production build of these changes that we just made to the React app. And then we'll cd out of this and we'll do node index.js. It says that it was successfully connected. So now when we go to localhost 8080, it is not, it has served up our button. And it serves it up kind of ugly, but you can see it down here. It says add a KD to the database. So we can click it and we can view our console in our browser. We can go to the console and we'll see it didn't say anything. And yeah, so it posted to /API, and I'm pretty sure we should be able to see that if we click it again. Yeah, so we see that it made a post to /API. And then we can go to our database, check the collections, and we'll see if it updated here, and it has. So as you can see, now we have a cat, and it has a name. So it successfully hit the API, and it did everything that it was supposed to in index.js. So now what if we wanted, rather than just putting this in there, to put in the name that we have on the front end? So this Dylan name that we're sending in. Okay, so that's good. We can add in cats with this name, but what if we wanted to add in the cats with the name that we're providing on our front end? And we can do that by parsing the body of this request. So we'll say const body equals request.body. And this is considered the body of the request here, this information that we're sending with it. So one thing we'll have to do is add another package that will let us parse the body of the request, and that's called body parser. So const body parser equals require body-parser. And then if we come back to here, and we go here, and we open up a new tab, and we say body parser documentation, and we look through here, we'll see that's how you add body parser. It'll give us a description of what it is. So parse incoming request bodies in middleware and available on the rec.body property. So pretty much whenever you make a post request now, it'll parse it and it'll give you access to all of this stuff in the body of the request. So const body equals rec.body. That will work. And let's read a little bit more. We want to be able to handle so let's just say we want to be able to handle URL encoded bodies and JSON bodies. So you don't really need to worry about that. Those are just two different types of ways that the content could be passed to you. If you want to read up more on either one of those, that's fine. But we'll add in the methods for the JSON. So it gives you this body parser.json, and then it also gives you this URL encoded. Also give you this body parser that URL encoded, and it can also give you an option. So this extended option will let you accept URL encoded data that is I think it just extends it so that it doesn't have to be JSON like with URL encoded. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna use that option as well. So we'll do app.use body parser.json, and then app.use body parser.url encoded, and we'll say extended is true. And yeah, so this will let us parse the body of the request. So now we'll have access to the body, and then we can make name be body dot name, and yeah, so that's nice. And then we'll clear the screen here, and we'll do node index.js, and we connected to the database successfully. We'll come back here. We'll add a kitty to the database, inspect it, we'll go to our network. Let's just click it again so we can get the network. And yeah, it sent our request. So then we should be able to come back here and it will say cat was added to the database twice. And now when we go here to cats and we refresh this page, it should now give us, yeah, so now it'll have two cats named Dylan. And just to even take this or I guess it's enough for now. Yeah, so basically our front end is connected to our back end, and in order to do more with this, obviously if I went a little bit more into React, we could maybe have like an input field here, and like it would like whenever you click this button, it would send the contents of this input field um, via this request, so you could put a cat with any name in there. That's kind of going more into React though, and I kind of want to stay out of there because I feel like it might be a little bit intimidating. There's a lot of really good tutorials on React and how to get better with it. And you can pretty much do this with any kind of front end framework. It would probably be pretty similar the way that you hook it up. But yeah, so we have now successfully guaranteed that our front end is hooked up to our back end, and we can make changes to our database from this front end. So we're pretty much done. Obviously the app isn't quite that attractive, but with a little bit more work on the front end and adding in a lot more stuff, this is pretty much the base for whatever functionality that you would want to add to your application. So just for a recap, um, we now have this button that will send a request from our front end, and it'll send a post request using Axios to the slash API, and it'll have a body with the name Dylan, and then it will do that, and then we can go to index.js and see how it's handling that. So app.post slash API, it'll grab the body of the request. It'll say kitty is a new cat with the name that's in the body of this request, which is right here. And it will then save that to the database, and then it'll log out to the console that a cat has been added to the database. And we know that that's working because we can see all the information in our database right here, and there are two cats named Dylan there. So this is a MERN application. It's running on our local machine, and the only step that's left after this, we could obviously polish the front end a little bit more, maybe add some additional functionality, but for the purposes of this workshop, we can keep it pretty lean and just everything that it needs to be. And you know, this is just the basis for whatever extra functionality you'd want to build out on it. But yeah, so the front end is now connected to the back end, and the final step is going to be deploying this application that we just made to Google Cloud so that it can be accessed from anywhere. So we'll go ahead and do that in a second. Okay, so for the final part of this, we'll be deploying the application in the Google Cloud. So in order to do that, you need to go to the console.cloud.google.com, and you should be able to navigate here after you finish the setup of this earlier, setup of your Google Cloud account. So you're going to navigate here, and then we're going to create a new project, call it MERN.workshop. MERN dash That's a pretty long name, but we'll just do that. Okay, and then it created my project. So now we have a project, and we can go to our code, and you'll have to add in this file. It's called app.yaml. Basically, when you run the Google Cloud commands to deploy, it's going to use this file to figure out how you want to deploy your application. So make sure that you have resources here, manual scaling set to 1 instance, your environment flex, runtime Node.js, and then these handlers for what to do with each URL. I'm not super well versed into app.yaml. This is just the file that I pretty much always use when I'm deploying a MERN application, and it's worked for me. I know that these are primarily to prevent you from running through your Google Cloud credits too quickly. This doesn't spin up like extra instances that you maybe don't need, and this just kind of limits the amount of resources it's going to use. And then this just is how to handle each one of these URLs. And then this flex environment, I think there's also a standard environment. It's just does some different stuff with Google Cloud. You can read about that. I'll add some documentation to the description to read about different YAML file information in case you want to learn more about this. But yeah, I think that should be all that you need. You also might want to change this in your package JSON. So add in this section to set your node engine to 10, make the home page, whatever home page is going to be generated by the application. So this is likely going to be MERN-workshop-app.appspot after we go through the deployment process. And then also adding in this start script. This is just like, so you could run npm start from this outermost folder and it would launch up your application. So just adding in all that, and then once you do that, your project should be ready for deployment. So we'll come back here, and the first command you'll have to run is gcloud-v. This is just to ensure that Google Cloud is everything set up correctly. So as you can see, I have gcloud installed. So I'll just clear my screen, and then I'll go gcloud auth login, and this will redirect you to a page to log into your gcloud account. I'm already logged into mine, so I won't get redirected to that page, but if you haven't yet, you'll have to do that. And then we need to initialize a Google Cloud project in this, so we'll go Google gcloud init, and we'll create a new configuration. And then we'll just call it MERN WK shop config, and it's going to create that configuration for us. And we're going to want to I want to use this account, and then I'll pick the project that I just created. So I'll do project 5. And okay, yeah. So now we should be all set for deployment. So we're going to run the command in order to deploy this project. Gcloud app deploy --stop -previous -version. I add in this flag because it just makes sure that you don't leave a previous version of your application running when you're running deploy. So you'll run that command. It'll ask you to pick where you want to run it. I'll do 14. And then it's creating the App Engine application in the project in US East 1. So we can wait for that. And we can review this. So this will be our target URL. So this is where it will deploy to. This is the source folder, and this is the descriptor. So it'll use our app.yaml to figure out how to deploy it. So yes, we do want to continue, and then it will enable our services. And this is now the deployment process is starting. This usually takes a pretty long time. So I'll stick around for a second and just see if it takes less time than usual, but most likely it won't. And if it doesn't, then I'll just go ahead and skip to after it finishes deployment. So actually, yeah, I think I'll just do that. I'll skip till after we finish deployment, and then I'll come back then. Okay, so as you can see, our app is finished deploying now. We can use the Gcloud app browse command to navigate to our app, or we could just grab the URL. So I'll just do that. And then we'll go to it, and boom, our app is deployed. We have our button down here. So if I open up the network tab, we'll press the button. We'll make the request to the API. And you see we have 8 results right now. So if we refresh, now we have 9. And also just to mention, in order to make this work, you need to go to access management, or you need to go to network access. So this was originally my IP address, but you have to make it like this. It has to be exactly like 0.0.0.0/0. So this means it can be accessed from anywhere. You just need the admin details to do it. Because when you deploy to Google Cloud, it isn't on your machine, so it's actually on Google Cloud's machine that they have somewhere, and that's what's running it. So if you keep it as your IP address, then it won't let you access your MongoDB instance. So you have to change the IP address to this, so it can be accessed from anywhere. And once you do that, you should be able to successfully do that. But yeah, if I go back to my cluster and I look at my collections, you'll see that that was updated. And then there's obviously some things that we could add here. Making the UI a little bit prettier is something that we could add, but this isn't specifically a React workshop, and I don't want to do too much of that kind of stuff to confuse anybody. And also, as you can see, there's no status here. Usually these statuses would be like what was returned. So a 200 status means that it was finished properly, and we could do that if we were to go back into our index.js and we were in this .then here, because this will only run after it's finished saving. We could even you could make this say .save .then and then it could console.log that. And then we could do res.status 200. So we could do something like that just to show that this worked correctly. And then we could also then add in a dot catch error so log error, and then we could do res.status 400 or something like that. So this would just be like a different way of doing this, and obviously we could build a ton more functionality out. This is just the basic, bare bones application. It's connected to a database, has a React front end that you can build with. Yeah, this will probably give you a status error because it never returned a status. So yeah, but it is successfully updating our database. We can add in those statuses too and everything, but this is definitely the bare bones that you'll need. And now that we've successfully deployed the application, we are done. So awesome. Yep. So deployed it. So yep, that's the end of the workshop. Feel free to reach out to me at Dylan. Oh Jesus. Okay, so feel free to reach out to me here if you have any questions about this, or just in general about anything that I went over today. And yeah, you can also please keep up with us on our social media at nighthacks.org/Facebook. nighthacks.org/Twitter, nighthacks.org/Instagram, Slack, Discord, all of those different platforms. And yeah, definitely. Once again, we're going to be having workshops in the coming weeks from um, some of the people at AI at UCF. To Anthony from AI at UCF will be giving a workshop next week on Markov chains. We'll be delivering that via the YouTube channel as well. He's going to record that. And then the following week, we're going to have Chris give a workshop on GIS and Python. So keep a lookout on the YouTube channel for those coming workshops. Thanks so much for watching the first digital version of a Night Hacks workshop. I do hope everyone's staying safe during this crazy time with the COVID-19 virus and that everyone is staying healthy. And also, just so that everyone knows, we are accepting applications for elections right now. So if you're interested in running in the elections for the executive board for this coming year, please also email dylan@ihacks.org and let me know what position you're interested in running for. There's more information that I'll add into the description about that election. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and definitely looking forward to putting out more videos like this in the future, because I think it's really important that we keep doing workshops despite the fact that we're limited in our ability to do that because of this virus. So also, I hope everyone stays safe and see you later.